change our order a little bit tonight in the very beginning, but first I'd like to recognize that a very important member of our Amherst community recently passed, Nancy Calabrese. She was director of our special ed for many years, and then came back after retirement to chair our committee on preschool special education. And she was a dynamic person, a friend to many people in the room, and many parents, very important to many parents and children, and she will be missed. And so I'd like to ask us just to have a moment of reflection for her. And on a happier note, we have some, we're going to start with our introductions of our teachers. We have a number of teachers here who are new to our district, and we want to welcome them. And then we will be doing our superintendent's task force, and then written and spoken communications. Okay?
So I think what we'll do, for those of you who are new teachers, all we ask that you do is just stand up and announce your name, which building you are currently working in, and what you're teaching. And that is the extent of the pressure that we're going to put on you this evening. So, and then you are welcome to stay or you are welcome to leave. No pressure either way. So if you want to just, I think we'll start from left to right, and if you're new, just stand, introduce yourself, as I said, and
All right.
more on what you're teaching.
Great. Hi, I'm Amanda Bandick. I'm at the middle school. I teach 6th grade English. I'm happy to be back. I was a long-term sub, and now I'm able to stay on board. So thank you for keeping me up.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Atten. I'm an ESL teacher at Windermere. I do K through 2nd grade. Hi, I'm Jennifer McManus. I'm also an ENL teacher at Windermere. I do K and 5.
Hi, I am Kelly Martin. I'm a reading teacher at Windermere, and I teach K and 1.
Hi, I'm Liz LaRocca. I co-teach 4th grade as special ed teacher at Windermere. Hi, I'm Allison Damon. I teach math AIS at Windermere.
Hi, I'm Erin Farrell. I teach 3rd grade at Smallwood.
Hi, I'm Lauren Bitter. I teach 2nd grade at Smallwood.
Christy Shields. I'm an occupational therapist, and I work at the middle school and the non-public schools.
Speaking. Erin Regan, 2nd grade at Windermere.
My name is Brandon Ehrig. I teach pre-algebra, algebra, and intro to pre-calc and stats up at the high school.
Hillary Jarmus at Windermere teaching 2nd grade.
Rob Robinson, 8th grade science at the middle school.
And Michael Pignatore, I teach ENL at Windermere and the high school.
Jim Mike at the high school, special education, co-teaching English 11 DR and resource rooms.
Milt Sheehan, I teach at the high school math. I'm doing algebra DR, algebra 2 trig, and Regents geometry.
Hello, Giovanella Plegra, Amherst Middle School, teaching tech ed.
Did we miss anybody? Anybody out in the the overflow? Well, as yeah, let's clap for everybody. I always have the pleasure of, I get to meet everybody before I make the recommendation, obviously, to the board for their appointments, and welcome them and let them know that basically they've landed a great job here in Amherst, just from my perspective, and we're always excited to hire new teachers and have them here, and look forward to their tenure here at the district, and wish you great luck. So on behalf of the board, welcome.
Thank you.
And I'm sure that
Thank you for joining our team.
I know. Welcome.
And as I said, you're welcome to stay or you're welcome to leave, whatever your preference is.
I know. We'll throw eggs as you're walking out.
That's right.
Nice to see you. Congratulations.
Kelly, we're writing down that you guys laughed. I'll find you tomorrow. I'll find you tomorrow. Let Allison know to end this.
I think our other crew is ready to come in. Next on the agenda for our superintendent's task force, we have recognition of our teachers and our students for right now. So we'll let them come in and begin the process of.
We've got some adult presenters tonight.
Oh,
we were here, so we
They were
thought
here.
we'd pitch in.
Fantastic. Doesn't matter.
Thank you very much. It's always an exciting time to share some of the great things that are going on at the high school, and naturally those are reflected with the folks at the high school, including the adults. We have Teacher of the Month program and a Student of the Month program, so it's very gratifying to us to shine a spotlight on the great work they do on a monthly basis in selecting students and teachers of the month. I will let my presenters begin with October Teacher and Student of the Month.
I'll go first. Elise is not here, correct?
Elise is here. Elise is right here.
Elise Felt was nominated as Student of the Month by Allison Gilbert and Mr. Gordon Kropp and Mrs. Gretchen Kohler. Allison states that Elise is an outstanding student and athlete who never fails. She was a great help in painting and suggesting the junior-senior lounge. Mr. Kropp stated, Elise is not only a leader in the classroom and queen of the Quizlet, but is a leader outside of the classroom as well. She and Chloe willed the senior lounge into existence, and when he worked with her and their other friends, Elise kept everyone organized and productive. She really was the one in charge. She is everything we should want out of an Amherst student and citizen. Ms. Kohler stated that Elise is doing a great job in AP Biology this year. She's a hard worker who has done well on her assignments and her tests. She's a pleasure to work with, and Ms. Kohler believes her success will continue as the year goes on. Congratulations, Elise. Congratulations, Elise, for being chosen as the October Student of the Month.
Congratulations.
The second student for the October Student of the Month is unable to join us. He's playing basketball tonight. I think they're playing Oracle Charter School. Rory Walsh was nominated as a Student of the Month by Annika Carlo and Mr. John Himes at the high school. Annika states that Rory is an excellent golfer and did so well that he qualified for the ECICs this year. He's a great student, friendly to all, and a great athlete. Mr. Himes stated that he's only known Rory for a couple of months as a student enrolled in his IComp 1 course. In that short time, Rory has really impressed him with his communication and people skills. Rory is calm and collected and is always willing to appropriately help those around him. He treats his fellow students with respect, and in turn, they respect him. Rory communicates clearly, asks direct questions, stays on task, works efficiently, and is just a genuinely nice person. Rory is a class act, and he is a pleasure to have in class. Congratulations, Rory, for being chosen as one of October's Students of the Month.
I have the first Teacher of the Month, Miss Nikki Sidebottom, beautiful family, I'm gonna call her out, was nominated as Teacher of the Month by Rachel Mead, Aubrey Rockoff, Mr. Marszalek, and Miss Ann Shelkoff. Rachel states that Miss Sidebottom works hard and always puts her students first, no matter what. Aubrey states that Miss Sidebottom is always smiling and friendly to every student and staff member in the building. Mr. Marszalek states that Miss Sidebottom was voted Teacher of the Month for the month of October, and it is her third time being voted Teacher of the Month in her career. She has been in the district for 13 years and has coached field hockey and basketball. She is currently the class advisor for the senior class. Ms. Sidebottom is currently teaching power walking, volleyball, and fitness for the months of September and October. A couple of her passions are to work out and spend time with her 3 children. I'm not done, there's more. Ms. Shelkoff states that she has had the pleasure of working with Ms. Sidebottom over the past 4 years as class advisors. She is a great partner and comes up with great ideas for fundraising for our class. Her dedication to the students and making sure they have the best prom is great to see. She attends all of the class functions with me and is a great supporter of the students. She has a wonderful attitude and outlook on life. She also incorporates her love of health and physical fitness into all things. She recently was certified as a yoga instructor and is very passionate about this. She is very deserving of this award. Congratulations, Nikki.
Thank you very much.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, I am here to nominate another Teacher of the Month for October, Mr. Sean Tanner. Okay, he was nominated as Teacher of the Month by Ms. Shelkoff and by Ms. Paul Saladino. Ms. Shelkoff states that she has had the pleasure of working with Mr. Tanner this summer at the Adventure as well as in summer school. He is a hard worker and is very knowledgeable about technology-related topics. He played a vital role in Adventure in making the slideshow at the end of the day for the incoming freshmen. He also serves on the technology committee at the high school. He has a great personality and is very outgoing. He is a hard worker doing projects behind the scenes and should be recognized for his efforts. Ms. Paul Saladino states that Mr. Tanner is a member of the special education department at the high school. He is in his second year in Amherst and has been a wonderful addition to the family of the high school for many reasons. Mr. Tanner primarily teaches math labs, but regularly shares his expertise in technology with both the students and the faculty. Mr. Tanner is very humble about his talents and works very hard to help all of his students to be happy and successful. He anticipates problems and is generously offers his help to all. You will rarely see him without a smile on his face. It's wonderful to have him to be recognized as a Teacher of the Month so early in his career, and we have every reason to believe that there will be many more spectacular months ahead. Congratulations, Mr. Tanner.
The first student for November, McKenna Rushford, was nominated as Student of the Month by Mr. Eric Zobel, Mr. Scott Geisen, and Ms. Stephanie Nardozzi. Mr. Zobel states that McKenna is a terrific young lady who excels academically as well as athletically. Both of those pieces have been well documented. He believes McKenna sets herself apart from others by being kind, responsible, respectful, and humble. McKenna has a warm personality and is a very upbeat young lady who is interested in helping people and simply doing what is right. McKenna is a terrific role model for all students, but especially young ladies. She would be a wonderful example for his daughters. Mr. Geisen stated that McKenna has shown great growth in the strength and conditioning class, not only physically, but also in her maturity as an adult. McKenna leads by example and assists the other students in class by helping them with words of encouragement. McKenna is a great asset to have in class and brings a level of excitement that spreads to the other students. And finally, Ms. Nardozzi states that over the past 2 years, she has watched McKenna mature into a hard-working, conscientious student who is focused on both her academics and her athletics. McKenna is an active participant in class. She is successful because she is willing to try newer, different methods to solve problems. Her strong leadership skills contribute to her success in the classroom and also contribute to her impressive athletic resume. Often, McKenna can be seen helping other students or working with others to help her. She has a positive, happy demeanor that is contagious. The natural tenacity for doing well that McKenna possesses will be an asset to her as she continues her education in the future. Congratulations, McKenna.
I have the pleasure of presenting Devon France. Devon was nominated as Student of the Month by Miss Christina Evans, Mr. Craig Contro, Mr. Paul Hare, and Miss Katie Rapp. Ms. Evans states that Devon is always very, very positive. He is a student who truly cares about the quality of his work. Mr. Contro stated that Devon is a great kid. He is always friendly and positive. Devon works hard and continues to work to do his very best. He is popular with his fellow students. Mr. Contro has taught him for 2 years now and enjoys having him in class. Mr. Hare stated that Devon is doing very well in geometry. He puts forth a ton of effort. He does his homework regularly, takes advantage of before and after school help hours, and participates extensively in class. Ms. Rapp states Devon is a very positive vocal presence in class. He isn't shy and he's outgoing demeanor. He is an asset in class discussions, and he works very hard and currently is doing very well in class. I had the pleasure of seeing Devon deliver a public speaking. It was a class I was sitting on, and I was incredibly impressed with his public speaking prowess as well. So a great promise ahead for you in your public speaking skills. So congratulations, Devon, for being chosen as November's Student of the Month. Thank
you. Ms. Legoff, who was nominated as Teacher of the Month by one of her colleagues, Sherry Surzak, and me, Nancy Avens. So I said that Ms. Legoff is a preeminent multitasker who will literally run to the second floor multi-use room from field hockey practice to facilitate a Yale informational meeting for area students and parents. It is not unusual to see her Amherst office light shining during a Saturday evening or a Sunday afternoon to help her students apply to colleges. In this day of technology, Lori still embraces the personal touch, meeting face-to-face with her colleagues and students alike, taking the time to advocate for all who need her. And Ms. Surzak states that Lori is truly an amazing friend, co-worker, counselor, and advocate for her students. She is sincere and goes above and beyond what is expected to help the faculty, staff, and students be successful at Amherst Central High School. The students and families she works with will get nothing but 100% of her time and effort on a daily basis. Ms. Legoff often comes in at night and on the weekends to make sure everyone's needs are met. She is a mentor for the individuals who work alongside her in and outside of the building. On any number of occasions, she has sought out for advice and just someone to listen to. She genuinely cares about our district and what it stands for. Her advocacy is like no other. She is one of a kind. Congratulations, Ms. Legoff, for being chosen one of the November's Teachers of the Month.
We have the second Teacher of the Month for the month of November. I don't know, is Mr. Bauer? Is he present?
No, he
is
is
coaching. Is he wrestling? Yeah. Go figure, right? You're good. Don't worry about it. Mr. Dennis Bauer was nominated as Teacher of the Month of the high school by Mr. Dave Manzel. Mr. Manzel states that Mr. Bauer is currently in his 21st year of teaching at Amherst High School, and he still attacks each day with the energy and enthusiasm of a rookie teacher. He is a tremendous asset to Amherst High School as teacher of AP and Regents chemistry, as well as being the varsity wrestling coach for almost his entire career. Mr. Bauer has a work ethic which is unparalleled, as he can be found each day in the chemistry office at 6 a.m. looking to get a jump on his list of things to do for the day. He believes in the details and has an unwavering belief in the how of his instruction. Whether it is AP chemistry or varsity wrestling, he is always making sure that he is building the skills his student athletes need to perform under pressure. His thought process is very analytical, and he always delivers instruction in innovative ways that keeps his students on their toes. His dry sense of humor is appreciated by his students of all levels and abilities. He's blessed that he sees things in black and white, and he does mince words when saying what he does not mince words when he says when saying what he thinks. Mr. Bauer is old school in many ways and is a positive person by nature. He appreciates what he has and is never one to complain or whine about things. Not surprisingly, he is highly respected by his students, peers, and administrators, and is an exemplar person at the school, in his home, and in his community. Dennis stays abreast of scientific and other current developments via the internet and will commonly incorporate new findings into his daily classroom teachings. As a teacher and coach, he is always looking for new and more efficient ways to deliver his instruction to his students and his athletes. Congratulations, Mr. Bauer, as November Teacher of the Month.
Thank you very much.
Mr.
Bauer?
No, you're not done with this yet.
Although we do have
We have
visitors.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep.
That was my fault, not your fault.
We have no written communication. We have one visitor wishing to speak, Mr. Jim Gramke.
Yes, good evening. Jim Gramke from Ruskin Road. Dr. Carosella, thank you for inviting me to participate last month in the focus group for the superintendent's search. After doing some research on the selection process, I have some concerns that I wanted to bring to your attention. First, the board decided to retain outside consultants at a cost to the district of $16,000. Erie One BOCES offers similar search services at no cost to local districts. Second, Dr. Chavy is the president of Western New York Educational Services Council, the agency that employs the two consultants doing the search. And this would appear to violate the rules that prohibit a superintendent from having a direct or indirect interest in any agency or bureau maintained to obtain or help obtain positions for teachers or superintendents. Also, the agency is affiliated with the Graduate School of Business at the University of Buffalo. And Dr. Carosella, from the bio that's on the website, it appears that you're also an employee at the University of Buffalo, and therefore it appears that there might be a conflict of interest, or at least the appearance of a conflict.
But thank you.
I'm just raising the concern. Another fact which complicates the matter is that the contract is with two individuals who are employees of the agency and not the agency itself. And this is contrary to what's been posted on the website. The website states that the district has retained Western New York Educational Services. In addition, the first payment that was due under the contract was paid to Western New York Educational Services, not to the two people listed in the contract. And that would seem to be some kind of perhaps internal control problem with respect to the payment. And finally, it appears that the board has not formally voted to approve the contract because it does not appear in any of the minutes that have been posted for the prior month's meetings. And a school board cannot vote to appropriate money during an executive session. So I just wanted to bring these matters to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And you'll be, are there any committee reports?
Yes. The subcommittee charged with creating a new superintendent evaluation that day with a vendor. A local organization has created a online tool that models, or that is exactly the same as the Council for School Superintendents model evaluation. And it's a fabulous tool. We got a great demonstration of it today. Really customizable and very, great steps to go through. There's a superintendent self-evaluation, and then that triggers emails to have board review it, and it's a whole great system. He is currently, he didn't have, a good idea of how much it would cost, but it would be, lower $2,000 or $3,000 range. But he's trying, he has a meeting next week to try and get BOCES aid for it, which would bring it, to a very nominal cost, few hundreds of dollars, and would function as a much better tool than what we've gone through and save tons of time, and it integrates everybody's reports into one, and it would be a beautiful thing to do. Beautiful thing to do. It would help us all greatly. So we're going to continue to work with him on that and see if we can get additional information, see if it gets BOCES aid. Certainly, we can use a paper tool for free and just spend a whole lot more time working with it. So we will continue to evaluate that and continue to move forward on what our ranking qualifications are. What things we have measured the superintendent on, and then see if this would suit our needs and bring to the board there.
Perfect. Okay, well, we look forward to hearing more about that in the
beautiful
future. The beautiful thing. Okay. Good. Any other boards?
Enthusiastic about it.
Committees that met? Okay. All right. Then I think we can again turn it over to you.
Alrighty. This evening we have our secondary curriculum and data review, and under the direction of Mr. Fennella, our assistant superintendent, I'll let him introduce our guests who will be presenting this evening, and it's all yours.
Okay, thank you for this wonderful opportunity to talk about the things that are going on in our district, especially from the secondary curriculum perspective. I'd like to introduce a few folks that I brought with me. First of all, I'll be introducing our new secondary math curriculum leader, Jenny Keppel. She's a high school math teacher. Nan Abels is now our assistant assistant principal at the high school. So just accelerated your career.
Moving up.
And she is, that's the reason why we had a vacated position. Mark Jones is a familiar face for secondary social studies, and Katie Rapp is here for the first time to talk about secondary ELA, taking over where Linda Barnes left off. So we're going to start with secondary ELA, and Katie will kick it off for us. Thank you.
Just get comfy. All right. So for the past 3 or 4 years or so, most of us have been working together to form the secondary ELA team, middle school and high school. This is, you guys I think have heard this before. Linda Barnes has presented all of what we've done the past 3 summers. Essentially going back for this school year 2012-2013, we have been working to implement the Common Core standards into our instruction. And this year will be the first year that all of our students are taking the ELA Common Core exam. Last year only the AP kids took it. So we were looking based on previous summers, where are we now? Okay. Previous summers we were working on different assessments for the high school. The high school created these vertically aligned assessments. So it was time this summer for the middle school to create theirs. Vertically aligned 6 to 8, therefore also vertically aligned 6 to 11. Looking at some data from previous exams, state exams in the middle school in particular, to address trends, how else we're going to push forward in the curriculum and the new Common Core learning standards. And then most of all, create a nice, very detailed map, 6 to 12, that needed updating. So let's see what we did. The assessment part, we revised the high school exams the summer of 2014. We really spent a lot of time finding documents for evidence-based responses, and creating benchmark exams, creating final exams as well. So from that data from June 2015, we went back and we had to make a few tweaks. The middle school, they spent a lot this summer creating their exams. They're still in progress, they're mostly done, but again, tweaks. Now they're vertically aligned with the high school exams. And we came up with a blueprint for all exams to be consistent. So no matter what grade those students are in, they're gonna know to expect certain topics and certain sections on each exam, which I'll show you in just a second, that are also aligned and scaffolded. So currently, as of this summer, all exams grades 6 through 11 should have 3 parts. A number of 2 or 3, depending again on the grade level, of passages for reading comprehension, followed by multiple choice questions, a mix of literary and informational text. The part 2 is the writing from sources task. It also is, depending on the grade, at least 2 sources, up to 4 sources, 5 sources, to incorporate a synthesis essay, and then the last part is a literary piece for a literary analysis. The second part of our summer goals was unit development. Just as an example of a typical ELA unit, often centered around a theme. I'll show you a chart in a second. We pick an anchor text that we use, that we do the literary part with, and try to bring as many supplemental texts in as we can. Current events, informational events, use the databases that the high school has, and we do different forms of literary analysis, close readings, annotations. We analyze the informational text as well. We are teaching more rhetoric and those kind of writing strategies. We still are focusing on multiple choice and more vocabulary, more academic vocabulary. And then finally, I have 3 screens. This is a before shot, and I know you can't read it. You'll be able to read a printout if you'd like. This was the before high school English curriculum. You notice at the top we've got grades 9, 10, 11, and 12. All right, and we just have a little box for each. We have anchor texts, writing tasks, a couple times. Well, it's like in the high school we have the added benefit of being able to gear our instruction for different levels. So when we made this in the summer of 2014, maybe 13, we decided, well, we need to update that and make that more comprehensive. So what we came up with, and these are all shared among all teachers 6 to 12, this is an example of the grade 10 Regents level. All right, and you can see this is the first part of it. We have 6 different texts going on. 2 of them are in common, or the themes that are in common, and then therefore we have 2 texts in common. These are all other texts that, depending on the teacher, we do and cover, and based on the literature. Then we have the anchor writing tasks that we all do, and then the supplemental ones. The anchor other related resources. Sometimes they're films, sometimes they're websites, sometimes they're different links to some current things, like you'll see here. There's a Jon Stewart clip for Taming of the Shrew, and then they're all connected down to the standards. So that was a big thing that we did this summer for sure, making things more comprehensive and accessible to everyone, which was also enhanced our communication from the middle school to the high school, which was essential. what's next? We meet in May to plan, but after this June, we'll have that test to look at and really break down the data of how our kids did on types of questions. We're always revising our curriculum, so there's that. And then now with the new E&L situation, we would like time to meet with those teachers and continue our planning moving forward. So that's ELA.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, go ahead. Hi.
Mrs. Rapp, I just was curious, and I read with interest, because I'm big on reading and writing and all that in particular. I just wondered, what is, you're 3 months into the year almost, do you see anything changing with the students in the classroom, any surprises, or is it kind of going the implementation after the changes made this summer?
You know, we
sticks out.
Things have changed, you know, a few times over the last few years. So like myself, that was my curriculum map that I put up there for English 10 Regents. So last year, for an example, I picked up a new book, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. It's a nonfiction New York Times bestseller. It's a very different kind of book to be teaching in an English course. But I noticed then, I was able to do so much with it. There's a lot of debate about the ethical issues within that book, certainly. There's a lot of nonfiction text that you can then, integrate technology with and have them research and do different research projects. And for that writing from sources task in particular, it's like, okay, you can teach argumentation. It's like, okay, we're gonna learn how to do this. We're gonna learn this side. We're gonna learn this side, and we're gonna be able to synthesize this information. And the kids, like, it's interesting enough, that they really took hold. And I'm currently teaching it again for the second time. And it's long and it's hard, but it seems to be on the road to what we're pushing towards. And having that opportunity to get those different kind of texts involved, I think is. Do
you like the way the students are buying into it so far?
My students are doing well with it. I feel like we do a lot more. It's an opportunity to do more. I find myself kind of teaching history a lot, and like I just did the Crucible, and we did this whole unit on the 1940s and 1950s and McCarthy, and so it's like, okay, so I've got to be this history teacher, and with Henrietta Lacks, I'm a science teacher, and so, but that's good for them, I think, to be cross-curricular in that way. Anything else?
We said the same
It's a
thing
lot.
when we looked at the elementary, each of them, it's just so impressive the work that's been done. It
It's
really
a lot.
is, it's just come so far.
I think since I started here in 2005, like I'm not teaching the same way at all. So.
And the way it's been documented and planned and
Yeah.
mapped and everything is very, very.
And I like being able to, now that we have kind of a big picture for all of us, and especially between 8th and 9th grade, there used to be a really big gap there, and it was, problematic in a way. And so now we're like, okay, this is what you're building towards, and it's really good.
We'll just continue to tie in then back to 5th grade and down in the elementary level. Is that,
That's the plan.
Sure. I haven't worked with them.
all the way
Yeah.
up.
That's the plan.
Assuming.
But we have math and social studies to hear from still, so thank you, Katie. Well done.
We had all of our teachers involved, so rather than list the names, we were very fortunate that Tony gave us time to get everyone in, even if it was just a couple of days. Just to give a little background, our first assessment was in 2013, so since then we've seen 3 assessments, 3 through 8, 2 for Algebra 1, 2 years of assessments. And then in geometry, we had our first one in June, and then we met purposefully later in August so that we could see another round of Regents exams and to give us time to get our state scores. And then Algebra 2 is going to be June 1st, this 2016.
All right, so this summer we came up with our goals for what we were going to do over the summer, and some of the big goals that we wanted to do was to revise some of the curriculum maps. Now that we've had a few rounds of assessments, we're now getting more familiar with the new modules, the new standards. We thought, let's go back and let's take a look at what we originally had mapped out, and let's actually come up with a more concrete plan that we can then follow, and we can give our new teachers to follow as well. And one of the ways that we accomplished our goals was we took a look at a vertical alignment. So we actually, all of the teachers met with our BOCES rep, Trish. And she kind of led the conversation through 3 major talking points. What are the major content and skills for your grade? What do you find your students struggle with in your grade level? And what are the things that you think the grade level before you could maybe help with those struggles? And this was actually a very interesting conversation, especially at the high school, to hear what they're learning in the middle school now. Because that is a gap that, with these new standards, we don't have a lot of time to actually meet and learn what is being taught and what's then, bridging all of that from year to year to year. And that really opened a lot of our eyes to, okay, if we don't spend as much time here, we can jump right in, maybe a little bit further ahead to get into more rigor with the content.
So with this information, we the vertical alignments, and then also using different data from the middle school wide computation benchmarks, which is an Ames Web skill test that they take online, and the local teachers exams. But what has also been very valuable is the gap analysis. And since it is a secure test, using the gap analysis by teachers, so the teachers have their individual results and then they have their results as a district. But because it is a secure test, the actual questions are not released, so they do it by standards. So they'll go through and do their standards at the
Yep, and then at the high school, we were also able to do a data analysis of our exams. But since our exams are released, we can actually, the teachers, we can see question by question actually how our students did. We can go by teacher or by district. So this is an example by district of how we did on actually each individual question. All right. And then we can also get a gap analysis per standard. So by doing this and being able to compare both standard and by question, we're really able to get a good comprehension of whether it was they didn't understand the content or they didn't understand the application of the content that the question needed them to do. So with having those in mind, we were then able to take all of that information and then kind of use that towards our end results.
And so with that, new curriculums were done for all the grades 6 through 10, and using all the information that had been gathered. And then we also increased the rigor because we have a few years now, with the implementation of Common Core, the foundation is getting stronger, and so we continually to up the rigor and to embed more spiraling.
Now, Algebra 2, they were kind of in a unique place over the summer because they were now entering into their first year of implementation of the new Common Core standards. So up here you can see there's a chart of the comparison of the old standards compared to the new standards. This is the one class that really had the biggest change in content. So they really kind of went off on the side and they really dove deep into working with our BOCES rep, exploring some of the PARCC exams, exploring the modules, looking online, trying to find other resources that they could take from to really help them with that new part of the content. And by the end of their weeks, they were able to create a shared folder. They were able to find those resources. They were able to start a curriculum map and to try to pace out what that new content, how long it was going to take, and how they were going to pace it out to be able to fit it all in one school year to get their students ready for that exam.
And so what's next? We're going to continue to revise, and we're going to dive deeper into the gap analysis for our subgroups because we are able to get that information, and then take a look at our senior electives now that they have all the new courses before them, so they won't need to do it. And that was what we did.
Hi everybody, thanks for having me back. One of these days, I think Mr. Pinella will let me hit lead off. But at this point, I'm the closer again. So we had no turnover in our team. We've been working collaboratively 6 through 12 now for 3 years. It's great for the 6th grade teachers to meet with the 9th and the 10th grade teachers. Great for the 7th and 8th grade teachers to meet with the 11th grade teachers and the 12th grade teachers. And it's a great opportunity that we look forward to with your support and Mr. Pinella's support. Where have we been? C3, the Common Core, released in 2013. Then in 2014, we had a new framework for New York State released for the social studies. And this year, we were really finally able to get our hands dirty with some of the new ideas being put forth in the social studies. English and math are quite a bit ahead of us, I guess. Us in social studies, in the rollout, in where they are in the implementation of the programs. So where are we? Social studies, I'm sure you remember, right? It was always about dates and facts and content and textbooks and reading and oh my God, not another date. Now, with the Common Core, we've kind of moved away from content and we're taking a look at the skills, the literacy skills, evidence-based multiple choice, evidence-based writing, argument-based writing, things that are applicable in the real world, not just memorization and regurgitation. So that's really, I think, the big change that we're looking at is toning down the content. We're not ditching anything in history. We're not dropping anything in history. We're not glancing anything in history. Instead, I think we're taking on more in the history classroom the skills that used to be solely our English colleagues of critical thinking and critical reading. So, all this, I think, is the end result here, is to make students caring, compassionate members of society, ones who can take informed action in the social studies classroom. So this new model presented by Dr. S.G. Grant, he's sort of the front runner. He's out of Binghamton University. He's leading the change here in New York State, and many of the other states in the United States are sort of jumping on board with what's happening here in New York State first. Go us. The inquiry design model, or IDMs, it's a new way of presenting history. It's a new way of teaching history. It's designed with students in mind, students first, and hooking them with questions that are applicable to their life, not just what was the revolution of 1917 in Russia. Instead, coming up with something a bit more pertinent to their lives. And again, the change here resulting in more argument, evidence-based, and taking informed action. So in other words, it's no longer the simple regurgitation, recitation of facts that we would see on the old exams. So quick, what is it and what it's not? It's supposed to be, there's the word again, rigorous, right? Meaningful and academically rigorous. Evidence-based, we're letting the kids get their hands dirty using primary sources, different perspectives, thinking about who's writing and why. Argument-based writing, coming up with specific claims about historical events, using relevant evidence, and taking account of the competing views of events in history. And then the real world extensions, this is where I think a lot of history teachers are excited that maybe we really can drum up some compassion in our students for current world events. So this IDM from Dr. Grant follows what we're seeing in C3, so much of it, as I listen to Kate's presentation, echoes what we're seeing in the social studies, with the ideas of evidence-based, primary sources, argument-based writing, all of these things, I think really link together. An example of an IDM of one of these compelling questions, instead of just what is Reconstruction, getting the kids to take a stand. Did Reconstruction really free African Americans? How do we get there? Through a number of primary sources and through a series of supporting questions. And again, it's the kids sort of leading their own learning, looking at primary documents instead of a teacher in the front of the room pointing to dates and saying this is what happened and here's why it happened. You're allowing the students to come up with, putting the pieces of the historical puzzle together. So the end result, all of this work that we're doing with documents, all of this work we're doing with primary sources, with the C3 is again, with this goal in mind of getting the students to become better writers, evidence-based writers, evidence-based argumentation, through essays, through debates, and then again, the exciting piece I think here, once students have become informed on a piece of history, making it applicable, making it relevant to real world issues, and then doing something about it. Whether it's in the school, whether it's writing something for Tiger Tales or what have you, whether it's a letter to the editor of the Buffalo News, a campaign within the building, there's lots of exciting possibilities. So where are we right now in history and the big changes in the exams? This year's 8th graders will be the first cohort to go through these new Common Core Regents exams. In 2018, they'll take the Global Studies 10 Common Core Regents exam. The big change there, it's only 10th grade material now. Currently, it's 9th and 10th grade. The format of the exam will change as well. We're thinking what it's going to look like is evidence-based multiple choice questions, document-based questions, which we've been doing all along in history, and argument-based writing. And then that same group, this year's 8th graders, will again sort of be the guinea pigs here in 2019 when they'll be challenging the U.S. History and Common Core Regents exams. And again, what we've been told all along here is that these new exams are going to highlight key ideas, student understandings, not the drudgery of content specifications, not the drudgery of dates and facts and resuscitation and regurgitation. We're excited. I mean, these are things we've been doing for a while, but now it seems like social studies is not going to be boring textbook learning, that sort of old school, what you see in movies, that kind of thing. Instead, it should be a more active and participatory classroom. Emphasis on the way students think and write, and the idea is to have them, thinking and writing like historians do in the real world. So I couldn't resist. It's Back to the Future. We're getting our moment in the sunshine here. U.S. history, global studies. Here we are. We're back. Move over STEM, ELA. No offense, my math and English friends. Social studies is back on the map. Mr. Pinella, I know you feel it. I know you feel it.
So, thank you for being here. I do want to point out that these are not, contrary to what they're presenting and how well they present, these are not curriculum specialists. They're actually full-time teachers that are in the classroom with 2 and 3 preps that they're teaching every day. And they've developed this knowledge to be able to lead these initiatives within our district, in their off hours, in the evening, over the summer, and they've sought out professional development, and they're a tremendous resource for our district. Recently, Brian Davis and I think he's behind me here, had the opportunity to attend a meeting with the local representative from the Governor's Common Core Task Force. His name is Sam Radford III. You may recognize him as a member of the District Parent Coordinating Committee in Buffalo. And Sam went around on a listening tour in a certain part of the state, and his task was to bring back recommendations to the Governor's Task Force, when they'll then make recommendations to the Board of Regents and the legislator for changes moving forward or modifications. So Sam had 2 things that he wanted to do. He wanted to hear how things have been going in the districts that were represented in the meeting, and he also wanted to know what we need moving forward. And one of the things I'd like to point out is it's clear that the implementation over the last few years has not been the same everywhere. And I'm proud to show you here how our implementation has gone, and we've had tremendous success with the things that we've done because we involved teachers in the process, we empowered them to be teacher leaders, and we've allowed them to develop curriculum that's appropriate for their kids based on their knowledge of them and their knowledge of good instruction. So Brian and I had certainly some good feedback to provide Mr. Radford, and he did indicate some of the things that he foresees in the future, and I put that in my last update to you, so I'm sure you had a chance to read that. Do you have any questions for either myself or the team while they're here?
Yes. So, is there a balance between how we're using local assessments and the state assessments in terms of making changes with curriculum allocation?
In general terms, I would say that there's the summative assessments, which we use to identify trends, and we identify gaps. That would be more of the curricular trends. And then we have a whole host of local assessments using eDoctrina, where we could pull out data to see how our kids are performing on those, and we sort of on an annual review look at that data. So I guess there's 2 ways that we would use it. Formatively throughout the year, you've seen examples of how assessments data is being gathered to make those on-the-fly adjustments with the kids that are in the classroom. I think at the end of the year, we rely on both local assessment data, third-party assessment data in some cases with Ames Web, and then state assessment data to put it all together to see how our program is looking. And the thing that you may have heard from Nan is that we're looking forward to multiple years worth of that data so that we can identify trends. You certainly don't want to chase 1 year, or try to adjust on the fly to trends, but you need 3 to 5 years worth of data to look at how standards have been assessed and then see how our students are performing before you make any big adjustments to the curriculum. So we do balance it. And that was one of the reasons why when Katie explained that blueprint, we wanted to really align our final exams in grades 6 through 11 so that it really starts with what the kids need to do at the end, which is the Regents exam in grade 11, and we walked it back all the way down to 6th grade so that we're scaffolding it up. So every year we have the ability to look at local data and make adjustments at the next grade level as they're moving through the program. The long answer to a short question is yes, we use a blend of third-party, local, and state assessment data.
I was assuming, but it wasn't as clear to me in the way that it was presented, but that was my assumption.
You were right, as usual.
And in regards to the Algebra 2 shift, clearly the large chunk of trigonometry has been taken out. So do you know, going forward, is that still going to be one of the graduation requirements? Is there some talk about that? Because that's I would say that's a pretty major shift out of some of the other ones, as was mentioned.
Yeah, that's a
in terms of how it's going to look going forward.
I think that's a very astute observation. I just go back to this graphic. So we have a little bit of a problem. You may or may not recall that as they implemented the first course, algebra, at the high school, and then geometry, they allowed that first cohort of kids to take the 05 assessment as long as they took the Common Core assessment. So the Common Core was required, and then the 05 one was optional. Here, we didn't really make it optional. We gave kids both of them, and they were allowed to take the higher of the two for their transcripts. They said originally that they weren't going to do that for Algebra 2 Trig, and this is the reason why. Because the green area is the only area where there's commonalities between the old and the new courses, and you can see that there's about, 60% or 65% difference from the old course, but there was a lot of pushback about that. You allowed it the first 2 years, why are you going to take that away now in the third year? Well, looking at this, we can see why they were going to take it away, because it's 2 different courses. But they backed off and they said, yes, we will allow you to give your kids the 05 exam. Our approach is a little bit different this year. So they're required to take the Common Core Aligned Regents exam, but we're giving them the option to opt in to the 05 one. And from the early June administration of the Algebra Common Core assessment up to the 2 or 3 weeks, for those kids that say they want to take the 05 one, we're going to do our best to kind of blitz it and cover some of the topics that weren't in the curriculum. But the required exam for kids in the course is the Common Core one, so obviously our curriculum is aligned to that. And then if they decide that they would like to take the old one just as an option, then we'll do our best to get them prepared, but we really are limited in our time and ability and resources to do that. So that's the only one that's really been.
So does trig end up getting taught somewhere else then?
Well, I think so. I mean, I'll let the math experts take that one.
So there is some trigonometry now taught in geometry, because since it is based off of right triangles, they're considering it now more of it's with shapes, so it's with geometry now. We don't go as in depth as it was in the old Algebra 2 curriculum, but there is trigonometry there. There will be some trigonometry still in this Algebra 2 because it's trigonometry is a function, and functions are part of the new curriculum, so I think you still will see some trigonometry in there. It just won't go as in depth. I think we're going to see that, and that's why we still need time to meet with our pre-calculus teachers and our college prep course teachers to maybe start incorporating trigonometry more into those courses to make sure they are getting it before they do go to college.
And there's more of it at the younger grades, in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade as well.
It sounds to me like everybody's excited about, there's 2 different things. And a lot of people confuse the 2 because they get lumped in together with the people who argue about the changes. And it sounds to me like the teachers, especially in Amherst, have really gotten behind the Common Core standards and the method or the pedagogical attack, right? So they're excited about the students arguing about things because if you're going to make an argument, you have to know what you're talking about so that other people believe what you're saying. That kind of stuff seems to work. How often, when you're analyzing the tests versus the standards, are you sitting there saying, that doesn't really ask what it should have asked? Like how much difference is there between what you're seeing in the tests versus where you're going with the standards and how you feel about what you're teaching and the increased rigor?
Well, I think there's 3 things. I'll just separate it out. There's the standards, then there's assessment, and then I'll throw in there the elephant in the room, which is the APPR evaluation process. So one of the things that we heard pretty clearly in that meeting Brian and I attended is, at least from the people in the room and from what Sam Radford reported back from being all around the state, is that the standards aren't the problem. In fact, they've heard from people who know the standards, because many don't, the people who actually know them think that they're good standards and they're appropriate. The next piece is curriculum. So from standards, curriculum is developed. Now that took on a life of its own in different districts across the state. Here, you've had the chance to see what our process has been. And in other districts, it was different, and I can't really speak to it because I wasn't there with them. But that's been an issue in some cases, because what we heard was that some people just took state-provided curriculum materials and gave them up to teachers and said, here, you have to do this. And that didn't go well for them, from what we're hearing. The third piece, I think, is the assessment. So keep in mind, the assessment is really one company's interpretation of the standards. So at the time, it was Pearson's idea of what those standards should look like. And the difficulty about it was it became so high stakes because they linked teachers' evaluations to it. So one of the things that we're hearing now, most recently, is that there's an effort to talk about decoupling the state tests from the APPR process, which they believe will, deflate some of the concern relative to the opt-out movement and that type of thing. But I think what we've experienced is, we embraced the standards. We got teachers in leadership positions. We've put them in an opportunity to interpret them and make sense of them so that we could put our own curriculum together. And unfortunately, I don't think everybody was working with the same structure or opportunity that we had. So from the teacher perspective, that's kind of the global picture, but you are correct. The three things of assessment, curriculum, and standards get muddled together, and they really need to be separated. So Nan, you had something that you wanted to say in relation to that. I don't know.
You covered it.
Okay. Any other questions? It seems like there's going to be a lot of fun this spring, from what I'm hearing. The governor and the new commissioner and the legislator and the Board of Regents all appear to be on different wavelengths right now. So I think it will be pretty interesting when the governor delivers his State of the State address and his executive proposal, what we see, and then how that plays out leading up to the April 1st budget. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So get your popcorn ready.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all of you.
I do want to say, we always, I think, we get so entrenched in so many other things at this board table, and sometimes tend to forget that this is at the core of what we do every day for our district. And I just want to reiterate what Tony had said about the quality of our teachers, the instruction that we provide, the level of professionalism. It's just really so incredible, and I know how much work it has taken over the years to do this, and we got to see the elementary present, and now we get to see the secondary present, and we've been able to maintain such a wonderful district, and it really is, this is the work that happens every day that really needs to be recognized. So thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for all of the work that you've done in making our vision really come to life. So that's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last on the agenda is one of those things too. We did want to take a couple minutes and just begin a very, very preliminary discussion about our tax levy options and where we currently are and some of the things that we're hearing and not hearing. And so I'll have Melanie kind of step up and take the lead on that. And these will be many, many other things, I'm sure, that we'll be seeing about this. So.
Yes, thank you. As Dr. Chavy said, this is really just a discussion at this point in time. There's so many factors that go into now calculating the tax levy, and many of those factors are unknown at this point in time. So I'll just start going through this again. No decisions this evening, just a pure discussion.
So the real property tax cap, it was actually enacted back in 2011, and it's referred to as the 2% tax cap. However, the law does not restrict any proposed tax increase to specifically that 2%. There are some exclusions, the formula, the way it works with pilots and so on, it doesn't always equate to exactly 2%. And we've seen that over the past several years with our district as well as others. So with some exceptions, the state's property tax cap limits the amount local governments and most school districts can increase property taxes to the lower of 2% or the rate of inflation, or CPI. And currently that's being estimated at 0%. So many districts are starting to have these conversations. Well, geez, with the CPI being 0, what are we going to do? That puts us in a predicament for the next fiscal year that we're budgeting for. Voters can, in school districts, override the cap with a 60% majority vote. If a local government, though, or school district exceeds the cap, it can prevent residents from receiving the recent tax rebate checks. And those vary depending on the value of your home and your property, et cetera, et cetera. One important thing is, you know, here it says voters, school districts can override the cap. Municipalities, it's different. Their board simply needs to just vote on that, so the public does not have to vote on it for any towns or villages. So school districts are treated a little differently in that respect. So I put together a few scenarios here. We have what we would anticipate for CPI in this column here, what that equates to in levy, what revenue would be generated specifically for tax revenue, and then based on our current predictions, which are preliminary, what that would do to our budget gap. And then any other notes, would it require simple majority, 60% vote, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll run through those. So the first line here is with CPI at 0, and taking all of those factors, the growth factor, CPI at 0, all the other factors, it would actually equate in a levy being reduced from our current year, which is about $34.1 million currently. So it would go down 1.69%. Generate just over $33.5 million in revenue. The current budget gap that we're using in our preliminary projections is just under $2.1 million under that scenario. Now we're hearing that they're saying, well, actually we don't have to reduce the levy, but we can keep it the same potentially. So that's the next scenario, based on our current year that we're in right now, 15-16, but with the exclusions for 16-17, so taking that base, if you will. Disregarding CPI, keeping levy the same, adding in the exclusions, so it would be just over $2 million of a budget gap with our current predictions going on. And if that is allowed, it would require a simple majority, so 50% plus 1, basically, to pass that. If CPI was at 2%, that would equate to a 0.28% increase in our levy, $34,249,200 in revenue, and a budget gap based on current predictions of $1.4 million. And that would be if CPI were the lower at 2%, because it's the either or that we discussed earlier. Now, if we went with something like this, under the current situation and CPI is at 0, that would require a 60% vote to authorize us to do that. And then disregarding CPI and looking at levy being 2%, what would that do? So that would generate $34,836,838 in revenue, and then our budget gap based on our current predictions would be $835,595. With CPI being at 0, if the Board of Education decided to do that, that would require a 60% majority at this point in time. So some other things to consider. The levy, prior to any of the exclusions that were authorized, so there's a few exclusions and we've talked about them in the past, such as the retirement systems, if the increases went up above 2%, your debt service or capital exclusions, et cetera. Those are the most common ones. But prior to the exclusions, that base then becomes, that amount becomes your base then for the following year. So the lower we would go for this year, the lower we start in the following year, and so on. And one important thing to note is that the New York State Educational Conference Board, which consists of several groups, New York State ASBO, NYSET, SAMES, NYSBA, the Council of School Superintendents. There's several groups that are all getting together and advocating for several things. The elimination of the gap elimination adjustment, restoring the foundation aid, as well as some changes to the tax cap. And there's several changes within the tax cap that they're advocating for, but the biggest one and the most critical one to school districts is allowing the levy to increase 2%, regardless of where CPI is. That would really, really help us out, as you saw in the last slide, what that could do to our projected budget gaps at this point in time. So we're really hoping that the governor takes that into serious consideration. It would really help us out, as I said. We're still dealing with gap elimination. The foundation aid isn't to the point it's supposed to be. In fact, just this afternoon, I did just a recap of where we are. I mean, not only did we lose over $8 million in gap elimination, but the foundation aid is grossly under where it's supposed to be as well. So it's millions and millions of dollars of loss in revenue for just Amherst specifically, since this all went into, in force, I guess you would say. So at this point, I'll take any questions. I know there's a lot of unknowns right now, but it's important to start talking about this, and hopefully, some of these groups that are advocating, it'll help.
Is there any kind of timeline on that? Like, do they expect information?
We haven't heard anything as far as even a potential timeline for that piece.
Yeah.
For that piece of it.
So CPI is based on the 2015 calendar year?
Yes, it is.
So basically it's January 1st.
Yes, that we'll know. We will know our tax-based growth factor, which that just takes into account any type of growth in the district. Amherst traditionally is pretty stable in that. The one thing we won't know is, will the governor respond to the advocacy and change the rules with the tax cap and disregard CPI and just say you can go to 2%.
And he probably won't make any decisions on gap elimination or foundation aid until we get closer to that April 1st deadline, because he traditionally will use those as ways in which
bargaining chips for
other agenda items. So that's the reality is, you can build a budget and have some preliminary projections, but until we get those final numbers, you're gonna have to go through the same process of having several different scenarios based on where he comes out with those final numbers.
Right.
Dr. Chibi, when would you like us as the board to be able to, for budget building purposes, to give you some guidelines as we have them?
We talked about that yesterday. For this year, I think to just slow the process down a little bit is not a huge mistake, just because there's so many variables that are unknown. I mean, I know in the past we've even come out with, recommendations for reductions if things happen, but knowing that there's really 3 potential things that could work in our favor and couldn't work in our favor, as per what Mrs. Conley just said. I'm thinking, sometime in December, late December, beginning January, we'll start meeting with the administrators and start talking about what would they be looking at like we have in the past. Mid to late January, you're probably going to really have to start thinking about what you want that to look like, but I'm hoping certainly by February or March you'll have a clearer picture once some of those numbers come out and some of those decisions are made. So you don't want to, our retirement rates have come down, and so hopefully with the economy still being relatively strong, that will continue to happen. So that works in our favor right now. So, sales tax revenue, I know that the Canadian dollar is different, but we still seem to be generating a lot of sales tax revenue. So, I think you can maybe just slow it down a little bit this year, just because of those things, rather than alarm people in terms of when you might have to get up. Plus, let's face it, with some retirements and things like that, there's potential for some savings there through nutrition and through restructuring if you choose to do that. So those would be things we will be talking about as well, that could encourage some savings. Different processes here for sure, no doubt. And the direction that the district chooses to go.
If I could just quickly remind everybody, a week from today is our capital project vote, noon to 9 at the high school. Please come out and vote.
Yeah, we encourage everybody to please come out and vote.
Will we send a robocall reminder?
I will. Yeah.
Yeah, that you are website too.
Yeah, we'll add it on again. I know it's there, but we'll make sure it's one of the first rolling things on the website.
Also, all of our signs in front of buildings, usually that.
Oh, right.
Yes.
I already sent it out. You already sent that out? Very good. Signs on the buildings, the postcards we have,
Yes.
the mail.
Yeah.
We have extras in the building, so please feel free to share those. Remind your neighbors, if you live in the district, or your families, to please come out and vote. I know, it's only impacting Windermere, but it does impact the entire district. Mrs. Conley has gone around to all the PTA meetings to meet with, the PTAs, to remind them. We have one more Monday. So, hopefully people will come out and vote.
Yes. Just pay attention to the hours, though, a little different from our typical vote, noon to 9.
Do we have the ability for people to opt in for the robocall now? Have we been able to implement that?
Not unless they are families here. No. Not unless they are actually families in the district. They could actually through e-news if they wanted to. They could let us know that they would like to be part of that. I don't know how much of a response we have.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering about. At first I was wondering that, but I didn't know if it had actually been implemented.
It's been advertised through the B, through Dr. Chaby's letters.
Right.
And I'm not sure if Mr. Navy has advertised it for us, but certainly people have been
To do the alerts and to get the information to us.
told how to get that.
So we have, so they would have access if they want to. I just don't know how many people are taking advantage of that, basically.
We have 89 people.
Oh, very good. All right.
Thank you.
Excellent.
We just sent something out on the
Yeah, I got a postcard on that.
Excellent, so that's good. That's very, very helpful. Yeah. It's worth it.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Now just regular business.
All right. Anyone like to make a motion for new business?
I would like to make a motion for your business items G1A through O and G2A through D.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Just to recognize the Amherst Alumni Foundation every year gives so much to the school district. We're not talking $20, $30, we're looking at $5,000 for the athletic department plus what they do to win. We do this every single year. It's been going on since the 90s and 80s. It's an amazing thing. We're very lucky to have that. So I just want to recognize that.
Thank you. Very, very good point. Thank you very much. All those in favor of adopting new business items G1A through O and G2A through D, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried, 7-0. All right. Do we have any visitors wishing to speak? Mr. Granke?
Yes, Jim Granke, Ruskin Road. Just one thing on the automatic calls or the robocalls. The Commissioner of Education does have a regulation out there that if you're going to make calls for votes, you have to call everybody in the district. You can't just limit it to people who have children enrolled in the school. So just want to caution you on that. Thank you.
All right, follow-up action items?
I have just one, to be certain that the capital vote, what you post on the copies are the ones.
Any items that we would like to consider for future agendas? Okay. All right, then would someone like to make a motion to convene to executive session? someone like to second that motion to convene with executive session for matters regarding employment of a certain individual? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. All right, thank you so much for coming tonight. The meeting is adjourned. What's next?